Last week, we discussed G Neri's graphic novel about gang violence called Yummy. This week, we continue the conversations with our writer. Greg, you call yourself an accidental novelist. Please explain.
Well, a lot of writers I know, that was their dream. Like they knew when they were 7 years old or 12 years old or 15 years old, that was what they were going to do, be a writer. None of that was ever in my head growing up, that was something I could do or something I would do. Like I said, I was very visual, so I was doing comics, I was drawing, I was painting, I was doing photographs, and that kind of transitioned into film. And then film became the thing like I was going to be. And so I had, kind of my film career, and that turned into digital media, another form of storytelling. And I'd worked in digital media for about 10 years and I was kind of burned out. And so I kind of stopped, and I was just started doing these little illustrated books for friends for, birthday or a wedding or something. And they were a lot of fun, and people really seemed to like them. And I started going to these conferences for writers and illustrators. And, one art director was like, this is what we want to see. If you want to be an illustrator, you need to send in these 4 things to show us you can do these 4 things, And I thought, just as a whim, I could do that. And I did this little layout thing that showed those 4 things and sent it off to all these art directors. And I got a call from Scholastic, and it was like, oh, do you want to illustrate this book? And I was like, sure. And it's like, oh, that was easy. And, it was just kind of happenstance, kind of luck of the draw. Like my thing landed on a desk at the exact moment where the art director's 3 choices had just been rejected for this little book. And she had 10,000 samples in her room to go through. But my thing just happened to come in that afternoon's mail, and it was sitting on her desk. And it's like, oh, that guy could do it. And so that was one thing. And then the other thing with the writing, those books were fun, but they kept getting held up for production reasons, things that had nothing to do with me, because they were very expensive to produce and they had kind of different materials and stuff. And so I started writing because of this Yummy thing, the school thing. And I thought, God, I'd really like to tell a story, but how should I tell it? I thought, I'll make it a movie. But I kept having this feeling in my gut, like, no, that's not the right way to do it. And it took me a while to figure it out. But I remembered when I was a kid, I was always drawing these comics. And I thought, like, oh, that would be interesting to tell it as a comic, as a graphic novel. And I kind of had a choice because I didn't have training to do that. So why should anybody let me do that? But I realized I had nothing to lose, because here I was, this guy who had never done a graphic novel. And if I tried and failed, I would still be the same guy. But if I tried and succeeded, I would suddenly have this whole other form of storytelling to use. And so I kind of just gave myself permission to try, and everything kind of fell into place. And it just ended up working out, and I sold it. And, because of that and my relationship to that editor, we started talking, and she had an idea about something and I had an idea about something. So then we did another book, and then that kind of turned into another book, and then after 4 or 5 books, I guess I was like, oh, I guess I'm doing this. And, if I could have shown myself 25 years ago, like all these books and things that I'm doing, because I'm working on my 16th book now, it wasn't even a grain of a thought of an idea in my head back then. And so I kind of, I think it's important. All kinds of unexpected opportunities pop up in your life, and we mostly ignore them because we think, well, that's not for me. Like, I wasn't trained to do that. I don't know how to do that. So we don't try them. But in my experience, especially since that, all kinds of unexpected opportunities have popped up, and I've said yes to them. And they've all led me to like unbelievable things that I thought I was not qualified to do. I mean, really amazing things. And just by saying yes kind of opened up a whole new world for me, and it just keeps happening. So my philosophy is to say yes to things that kind of scare you, I guess.
Well, why G instead of Greg?
I was also an artist, and I was kind of doing two things at once. I was doing these drawings for really young kids, like toddlers, like board books and things like that, like really colorful, playful. And then when I started writing, it was like these heavier, more serious stories. And I wanted to make a difference, like a branding difference. Like the G Neri is kind of like for teens. And and I thought about when I was like in first grade or whatever, I did a drawing. I signed it Greg N. But by the time you're in high school, you're like a last name, like G Neri is like, if you're on a list, that you might be listed that way. So I thought that was kind of a nice way to differentiate the two, So Greg N did these colorful, art for toddlers, and G Neri does the powerful stuff for teens. But then I stopped drawing and just took on writing, and then so I was left with that.
You started out as an artist, but now you write the stories and let someone else do the artwork. What's that all about?
I started working with these amazing artists, and not only was it fun, but they brought a whole different thing. Like I would see the book one way in my head, and they would come to it with fresh eyes. So they'd never read the story, and then I give them a finished story, and they're seeing things that I don't see in my own story because, they don't have the context of where I'm coming from. And through their visual storytelling, they're revealing things that add, even more to the story that I didn't necessarily see, even though I wrote it. And so I feel like those two visions coming together make the story even better, even richer, even deeper than if I had done everything myself. So, and then I just have worked with so many amazing illustrators, like I could never do what they do. So it's kind of a special thing, and I love working with different illustrators that they bring different elements to it that really elevate every story I do. I mean, I keep threatening that I will do one where I draw and write, but I keep running into so many amazing artists.
Some graphic novelists say they start with a picture and that inspires the story, and some say that their inspiration comes from the words. What about you?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's kind of a mixture. It's usually a moment, and and there'll be an inspiration that could be an image, like a photograph, like the Concrete Cowboy, like an image of a young man riding his horse through the inner city of Philadelphia is such a, like, oh, I've never seen that before, image that it just gets your mind going and you want to find out what is going on. Like, what is this place? And then the more you dig, the more amazing it seems, like this amazing story hiding in plain sight that nobody has written about before. So usually what gets my brain going is kind of the opposite of the advice that you're usually given, which is you should write about what you know. I usually write about the things I don't know that I just stumble across by accident. And as my brain is going, what is this? What is going on here? How is this possible? And I just start digging in and finding out about a whole world that exists that I never knew anything about. And usually most people don't know anything about. And so it becomes a mission to kind of show this aspect of real life that nobody knows is hiding in plain sight. And that really excites me. That's kind of like school for me. Like every book is teaching me something that I never knew anything about, showing me a place or people or person or an event, something that happened, a history. And it's really exciting to kind of bring that to life because I almost want to read that book, but nobody has written it before. So I feel I have to write it in order to read it.
We have interviews with dozens of other writers at our website, bookclubforkids.org, on our Writers on Writing page. And if you've got civics on your mind, don't forget our other podcast, The Fina Mendoza Mysteries. Fina is the 10-year-old daughter of a congressman who solves mysteries inside the U.S. Capitol and teaches civics along the way. There's free curriculum and teacher's guides. Check it out, The Fina Mendoza Mysteries. I'm Kitty Felde. Thanks so much for listening.